so very much, Professor Dennis Soltis, the Department of Public Administration at the Caleb University in Almaty, Kazakhstan. Stay safe. You too. You are. Thank you. Still to come on the program, Separatist Count Donetsk prepares for referendum on joining Russia. Please stay on with us. Welcome back to the program. The release by Russia of 5 British prisoners of war as part of an exchange with Ukraine was a surprise, and that's according to non-profit organization Presidium Network. It does relief work in Ukraine, including help with evacuations, but says the release of the 5 prisoners had happened faster than they had expected.
To be honest, we weren't expecting this to happen so fast because of such as families really been in the dark with a lot of these political negotiations for obvious reasons. So it became a surprise because we were still preparing for the next trial in October for majority of these people, especially the 5 that was released. They're supposed to be back in court in October, and we were expecting that to be the next phase to navigate that phase. So we're preparing for that. What we know from their journey is that they all travelled through Saudi Arabia last night and arrived back in the UK early hours this morning. We know that they have been reunited with their families now and are starting that reintegration process with their families and making sure that they know that they're safe and that they're loved, and some of very happy times now. So basically, in the short term, it will just be figuring out how to get back into daily life and them being civilians and not part of the UK military or anything. That it will be a big shock compared to what they've been living through recently. But basically, that they will have the ability to talk to specialists and to get that support that they may need, but also being able to, get a standing back in the UK, figuring out what they're going to do job-wise and really how they can bring back normal life if that's what they want. They will be feeling a huge amount of relief. The one people that we have spoken to in the past that have this element of relief, but also element of shock. These things can happen very quickly and a whole new life very, very quickly, which can be overwhelming, and that's why we need more privacy. The images that we've seen that they seem to be in good health, and they were very happy when they arrived in Saudi Arabia, and images we've seen arriving back in the UK, happy and see their families. So there'll be enjoyment, there will be a lot of happy people, but also there's always that concern of their treatment and how that will impact them in the short term, and medium term and long term. Basically, the only thing is that they're very happy to have him home, and there's huge relief and pressure off their shoulders, and they're just very happy to see him well and alive. So that's all they said, but also asked everyone to respect their privacy and don't contact them and allow Dylan to have his space and make sure Dylan can make the choices now freely himself. It's a massive relief that this is started. It's the start of the process, and we really hope this is the start of the process of peace as well within the region and create some security in that region again.
And from that very extensive interview, you could hear that the 5 of the prisoners of war have returned to the United Kingdom. The 5 prisoners, Aiden, Iceland, Sean, Dylan, Haley, John, and Herman, and Andrew Hill, were reunited with their families after landing at London's Heathrow Airport. Asling and Pina were captured by Russian-backed forces in Ukraine's coastal city of Mariupol in April and were sentenced to death by a court in Donetsk People's Republic, one of Russia's proxies in eastern Ukraine. They, along with Moroccan Brahim Sadoun, were found guilty of mercenary activities and committing actions aimed at seizing power and overthrowing the constitutional order of the DDR, a sentence which had been condemned by Ukraine and Britain. Mr. Healy of Britain provided humanitarian assistance to Ukraine, was detained in April alongside Paul Hearing, who later died in detention. Mr. Hardin and Hill had been fighting alongside Ukrainian forces, and all three had denied being mercenaries in the Russian proxy court. At an event on the sidelines of the United Nations annual debate, human rights lawyer Amal Clooney urged countries not to become numb to war crimes. Ms. Clooney urged countries to support a Ukraine push at UN General Assembly to establish a compensation commission.
We are now more than 6 months into a war in which innocent men and women are fighting against a brutal war machine. More than 5,000 civilians are dead, including hundreds of children. As cities emerge from occupation, we find reports of mass graves from Bucha to Mariupol and now Izium. We see the bodies of men with their hands tied behind their backs, and a few days ago, reports of torture chambers in reclaimed portions of Kharkiv. UN Under-Secretary Pamela Patton, who you will hear from in a moment, has received shocking reports of sexual violence, including rape and gang rape, in which family members were forced to watch. When I addressed the UN Security Council in April, I expressed concern that we would become numb to reports of these crimes, less resolute in our intent to prosecute them, and we cannot allow that to happen. The people in this room are the leaders of 50 nations. You can do something about this. So I want us to use this meeting today to reassure the Ukrainian people that justice has not been forgotten, that accountability remains a priority, and that you are willing to play your part. I want to suggest 5 things that you can commit to today as states in order to advance accountability. First, you can help Ukrainians rebuild their country and their lives by supporting the draft UN General Assembly resolution that has been put forward by Ukraine to establish the framework for a compensation commission.
The Russian-installed voting commission chief of Donetsk People's Republic, Vladimir Vysotsky, has inspected Donetsk polling stations ahead of a referendum on joining Russia. Luhansk, Donetsk, Kherson, and Zaporizhzhia provinces are set to hold a referendum between the 23rd and 27th of September. Mr. Vysotsky showed reporters ballot boxes made of clear plastic, promising the voting process would be just as transparent. The stations Mr. Vysotsky visited were, according to his estimation, 100% ready for polling. Polling station staff were seen being trained for a last-minute referendum announced only on September the 20th. Russia did not recognize the independence of the Donetsk People's Republic before February 21, 2022. However, Ukraine said it would not recognize the results of the new vote. Let's talk to Mr. Olade, the Rio security analyst who joins me here in the Lagos studios. Good morning. Good morning. I could see you nodding when Amal was talking about compensation commissions and the issue of not taking the eye off the ball and becoming numb to crimes, to war crimes. Do you think there's a real possibility that people will become numb to that, especially people in the immediate theater of the conflict?
Yes, it's possible, because when you're used to seeing disasters, carnage, death around you, if you don't get touch you, will affect how sensitive you are. It's possible. I don't think the world now, the Israel world now, the waiting for the center of action will forget about it. I'm not affected anyway, and I'm sure I'm not affected. So other world leaders who are especially not happy with the turn on events. I listened to Berlusconi, former Italian premier, yesterday when he said Putin was pushed by his party, the people, his ministers, to organize the special operation, calling the war by another name. and replace his government with that of reasonable people. Now, and I was asking, since when has it become the business of another country to determine who rules another independent sovereign nation? You know, when you bring that into focus, and you see the US now considering speedily to sell some powerful equipment to Russia, to Ukraine, which they said they didn't give to them before because they were afraid that if you should get to enemy hands, it would be very dangerous. We may see how a long way to go in this regard. So, to even start thinking of the compensation, for me, it's too soon, it's too early.
Yeah, because things that are going on.
Yeah, attacks are still going on here and there. I mean, nobody is, like I said earlier before we came on air, if this mid-assembly should end without some concrete decision being taken and self being initiated to put the war to an end, we in the UN will be possibly put in control, which some voters will be asking, why are we here?
What's the benefit?
Because if it happens to
But then, as you say that, right, except for the fact that it doesn't appear that there is either the willpower or the alignment of interests of the forces to bring about this kind of situation. Because even though it seems things are intractable, somewhere in between, when food supply was threatened, pushing that. Only yesterday there was a prisoner swap which you and I were discussing. So it is not as if they are not talking or that there's no opportunity for talking. They are all in New York, mostly except Mr. Zelensky. All the others are in New York. Mr. Macron you were referring to, Mr. Schultz that you were referring to. They're all in New York at the moment, talking at the UN. So, is it that because those alignment of forces that you just said has not happened, we are going to be subject to this continuing conflict until then?
in another 24 hours, or it's 24, right?
Today is 23rd.
23rd, right? By tomorrow, it will be 7 months that this attack started. And what we're seeing now are colleges of interest amalgamating, okay? Each trying to protect his own interests, whereby at the end of the day, maybe they can say we won, but this should not be about the future or the vanquished. It should be about finding lasting peace. Now, I understand Poland has started distributing tablets to people living in certain areas, especially where they have the largest nuclear plant.
That's not
to manage their health in case of exposure to radiation. And when you look at that, you still want to ask, why is Poland taking that step? Why are they not reaching out to those interests that anything can prevail on Russia, Putin and his people now? Okay? Then we've also seen the story of a new strategy. When I have Zelensky announcing that Russians should no longer join the column because they've lost 50,000 Russian army. How will the soldiers? How will we have been able to know that? Okay? And the next consequence of that is that virtually flights to every nation that gives Russians visa-free entry have been fully booked. And the tickets have gone up. Why? They want to get out of Russia. And that was important. And I understand about 1,500 people have been arrested. You know? And I read the report on the prisoners swap. The ones that came from the Russian end, they were less than normal in physical condition because according to them, they were tortured, which of course Russia has denied. So all of this gathered together still shows that until those interests can find a central meeting point and then begin to talk on the issue of putting an end to the war, then there's a problem.
I know that you are particularly concerned about the humanitarian side. It doesn't get as much airtime or as much prominence even in the discussions. And occasionally do you hear people talk about the women, the children. I so on, those who face some challenges, those who are so that while all the debates, the discussion, the exchange of weapons and all of that is going on, military area, and what is happening at that level continues to be almost ignored.
Not almost ignored, completely ignored. There have been series of attacks in different cities, and people were murdered. Even those territories occupied before by Russia, where they are purportedly preparing for memorandum at having an election on November 4th to declare them Russian territories. Nobody mentioned those who were wounded, those who were injured, those who are denied access to care, and even food for that matter. Now, all the grain negotiations were all about sending grain outside of Ukraine to Asia and Africa, not about managing the locals who have become despondent and homeless. Okay, within Ukraine, a lot of them have become prisoners of war, with nowhere to go, no means of livelihood, and they're also roaming around, taking livings like miscreants. The reports, global reports have left that, and that gives me concern. But I'm a human being like any of them, and I could have been in that situation. So when you come on them, it's like when they could have been in that situation. So you can imagine that they are leaving humanity out of their conversations, which makes me sad until that drops from them. Like I said the last time I was here, when you bomb the building, the likelihood of human beings being there is very high. So you are only killing people when you throw sorties or warhead or whatever. Now they're going to be using drones, even more extensively, and drones, and that will create more damage. And I still wonder why nobody is thinking or talking about those human beings. They are not goats, they're not vehicles. They have blood in them like other people. So why are we not showing concern about their welfare?
Indeed. And one can only continue to draw attention to this as we go on.
Well, I hope other countries are learning from this. When you draw the base of the war, Berlusconi didn't short me. When he said they thought Putin, they are the central business going around Ukraine, they don't go to Kiev, get rid of Zelensky, as if they are going to be the headmaster in primary school and then replace him. That's the mindset of those who are behind Russia. And the earlier they change their stance, the better for humanity.
Mr. Lade Rio, as always, thank you for your time this morning. My pleasure with this. Still to come on the program, former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson confuses Mr. Zelensky with Mr. Putin in the speech at the House of Commons. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson wrongly referred to Vladimir Zelensky as Vladimir Putin as he spoke in the House of Commons. Thanks also, of course, to the inspirational leadership of Vladimir Putin, the inspirational leadership of Vladimir Zelensky told fellow members of Parliament he apologized as soon as he realized his mistake.
Heroism of the Ukrainian armed forces, thanks in part to the weapons that we are proud to be offering. I congratulate my right honourable friend on his description of the work of the UK armed forces, the weapons that we're sending, the huge list. Thanks also, of course, to the inspirational leadership
program this morning, any morning.
Good morning.
We've been focusing on the effect of the war in Ukraine on Europe, on America, sometimes on Nigeria. But there are other countries that are equally affected.
Obviously.
This morning, South Asia.
Yes. And so we have the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, and that's 10 of them. 10 of them, including Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam. So they are a region, and they've come together and trying to form common goals and promote economic ties and trades. And so now they've been having themselves a lot when it comes to energy. We've seen transportation of gas from one of them to the other, and it's been keeping them safe. But the problem now is with the scarcity of gas, in the world, obviously there are more demands on the little that
The ones who have.
exactly. So now they are feeling the pinch. For instance, Malaysia has become one of the world's largest importers of natural gas. Now they are paying more because it is more expensive, and we can only imagine what that is doing to the economy, to their, their servicing, the money that they spend for all of that.
Right.
So they get primarily from Australia, from Brunei, Indonesia, Singapore. So they get from among themselves, and also get from Nigeria. So they've had a plan for over 20 years to connect, for those who have the natural gas, and they do a lot of clean energy, renewable energy, solar, water, and all of that. And they've had a plan to combine it and have, since it's a region, so they combine their supply and then they're able to feed themselves. They had it for over 20 years, and there has not been any motivation to make it
actually go ahead with it.
exactly. Now it seems the motivation has come, because a country like Singapore now, they say their energy cost, their price has gone the highest in a decade. And guess what? They also have the plan that they have, that where they get their energy from. It needs to be it's supposed to expand. It's supposed to get new maintenance and new facility in about 5 years. I think from last year, so it's about 4 years more. So at this time, it's becoming a problem. So they're supposed to start importing energy.
Just to make up the shortfall.
Exactly, and prepare for what they're supposed to do, the restructuring and stuff like that. And coming at a time when energy cost is now this high, it's not. They could have easily turned to Russia and stuff like that, but obviously they can't do that now. So they're looking at developing within themselves and building the infrastructure. But of course, it costs money. So they've decided that they're going to create a fund where every member nation would contribute, and they will also open it to members of the private sector to invest in it. It sounds like a good plan, but starting it, they have not started.
Yes, and it's going to take some time to start it. And of course, we must note here that some of the countries in ASEAN, which is the organization you're referring to, are some of the richest countries in the world, but then some of the poorest are also there. And so there's a mix, and some of those who need and some of those who are giving. And as we've seen elsewhere, when it comes to difficulty, the solidarity will not last.
Yeah, because we can see from what's happening in Europe. We see countries like Hungary standing out to say, you guys can win yourself off Russian gas, but we don't have the energy, and we cannot totally come out to do that. So it kind of brings disagreement, and so they cannot alter.
Ukrainian forces have broken through Russian defences in the south of the country while expanding their rapid offensive in the east. They're seizing back more territory in areas annexed by Russia and threatening supply lines for its troops. Russian-installed officials have acknowledged Ukraine's advances in the Kherson region, one of four that Russia illegally annexed last week. Ukrainian troops are said to have gained territory as much as 30 kilometers away from where the front stood just days ago.
Troops raising the flag allegedly in Kherson, which had just been illegally annexed by Russia. In Donetsk, another region Russia claims as its own, Ukrainians ride through in tanks, some of them captured and still bearing the Russian war symbol Z.
This technica comes from Liman. It's Russian vehicle, and now this machine will work for our armed forces.
Though Russia recently announced it was annexing 4 regions of Ukraine, Ukrainian troops keep recapturing territory. They achieved their biggest breakthrough in the south since the war began, shortly after pushing soldiers out of the strategically important city of Liman in the east. Now, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says the army has liberated new towns in a number of areas.
Today, the offensive movement of our army and all our defenders continue. There are new liberated settlements in several regions. Fierce fighting continues in many areas of the front.
It comes as President Putin faces increasing problems with manpower, logistics, and morale, as well as thousands of men fleeing Russia after being called up to fight. In a morale boost for Ukraine, fighters who defended the Azovstal steel plant in the besieged city of Mariupol were reunited with their families. The Ukrainian troops were part of a prisoner swap brokered by Turkey, where the fighters will remain until the end of the war, when these families hope to be back together again for good.
DW's Nick Connolly is in Kyiv. How significant are the latest Ukrainian gains?
Certainly, we spent the whole summer expecting some kind of movement in Kherson. That was what the Ukrainian leadership was talking about endlessly. In the end, it didn't happen. All the activity was in Kharkiv, and Kherson was the sideshow. That is now definitely changing. As the actual scale of these developments, it's pretty difficult to tell, the information kind of trickles down and out to us kind of in Kiev a day or two later. The Ukrainian army is very good at keeping all the details pretty secret. We actually find out more from Russian military bloggers, and they're certainly starting the blame games. There's a real sense of panic on the Russian side, even among people who support this invasion, a sense that there's different parts of the Russian establishment blaming each other for these setbacks, and no real idea of how they can really end this Ukrainian advance. The mobilized forces, those newly called up people who often don't have any military experience, are not reaching the front lines in the numbers and with the training needed to really genuinely develop this.
Nick, has Russia's illegal annexation of land changed anything?
We've not seen the Ukrainians take any notice of this. The Ukrainian government and top figures here have repeatedly said this is basically a bit of political theatrics and change nothing on the ground legally, and that's obviously an opinion that's shared internationally. No one outside Russia has recognized this annexation. Just to give you a sense of the chaos and the kind of meltdown going on in Moscow right now, we heard yesterday from the major press conference, Putin's spokesperson saying that they still haven't quite decided on the exact borders of what they were going to annex, if they were going to claim the entirety of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions as they are administrative regions, or if they were just going to claim the bits that had been under Russian control since 2014. As for Zaporozhye and Kherson, they said they would talk to the locals. So a sense that all this theatre in Moscow, this big attempt to try and show that Russia was regaining initiative is built on very, very shaky foundations, and a sense that Russia can't really get its story straight now.
How are dropping temperatures going to change the dynamic?
There's definitely a sense that this is all going to slow down in a couple of months' time once temperatures drop. That was always the pattern in Donbass since 2014, but winter saw fighting and movement on the front lines. We've seen Ukraine already call for help from Western countries in terms of supplies, winter uniforms, boots, and they are now, as we understand, on their way. I think the bigger kind of development will be those mobilization forces from Russia. There is a sense that Russia is going for more than 300,000 new troops that they talked about when this was announced, and there was upwards of 1 million soldiers probably coming this way. What qualifications they have, what training they'll have, and what supplies is a different question, but there is a sense that Ukraine is now trying to basically make the most of this sweet spot right now where Ukraine often has more boots on the ground than Russia, and those Western weapons are making a real difference before Russia has a chance to restock and to resupply. So Ukraine trying to push back and double down until the winter stops things, and try and push those front lines back as far as possible.
Yeah, Colin, thanks for your extensive reporting.
Hindi kasi alam bakit? Sa probinsya, tuba ang
Let's get more now from Bradley Bowman, the Senior Director of the Center on Military and Political Power at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy. It's good to have you on the day. Let's start with these reports out of Ukraine. What do they tell you?
Dry has been a trusted name in carpet cleaning for over 45 years, and for good reason. Dry uses the perfect combination of nature's chemistry, along with our core cleaner, the natural, to provide a deeper, longer-lasting clean to your carpet's area rugs and upholstery. Millions of carbonated bubbles remove the dirt, allergens, and stains from deep within your surfaces, giving you a healthier home. Call 1-888-58-ChemDry or visit chemdry.com. ChemDry, the healthier, deeper carpet cleaner.
Ukrainian forces have broken through Russian defenses in the south of the country while expanding their rapid offensive in the east. They're seizing back more territory in areas annexed by Russia and threatening supply lines for its troops. Russian-installed officials have acknowledged Ukraine's advances in the Kherson region, one of four that Russia illegally annexed last week. Ukrainian troops are said to have gained territory as much as 30 kilometers away from where the front stood just days ago.
Troops raising the flag allegedly in Kherson, which had just been illegally annexed by Russia. In Donetsk, another region Russia claims as its own, Ukrainians ride through in tanks, some of them captured and still bearing the Russian war symbol Z.
This technica comes from Liman. It's Russian vehicle, and now this machine will work for our forces.
Though Russia recently announced it was annexing 4 regions of Ukraine, Ukrainian troops keep recapturing territory. They achieved their biggest breakthrough in the south since the war began, shortly after pushing soldiers out of the strategically important city of Liman in the east. Now, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says the army has liberated new towns in a number of areas.
Today, the offensive movement of our army and all our defenders continued. There are new liberated settlements in several regions. Fierce fighting continues in many areas of the front.
It comes as President Putin faces increasing problems with manpower, logistics, and morale, as well as thousands of men fleeing Russia after being called up to fight. In a morale boost for Ukraine, fighters who defended the Azovstal steel plant in the besieged city of Mariupol were reunited with their families. The Ukrainian troops were part of a prisoner swap brokered by Turkey, where the fighters will remain until the end of the war, when these families hope to be back together again for good.
DW's Nick Connolly is in Kyiv. How significant are the latest Ukrainian gains?
Certainly, we spent the whole summer expecting some kind of movement in Kherson. That was what the Ukrainian leadership was talking about endlessly. In the end, it didn't happen. All the activity was in Kharkiv, and Kherson was the sideshow. That is now definitely changing. As the actual scale of these developments, it's pretty difficult to tell. The information kind of trickles down and out to us kind of here in Kiev a day or two later. The Ukrainian army is very good at keeping all the details pretty secret. We actually find out more from Russian military bloggers, and they're certainly starting the blame games. There's a real sense of panic on the Russian side, even among people who support this invasion, and a sense that there's different parts of the Russian side blaming each other for these setbacks. And no real idea of how they can really end this Ukrainian advance. The mobilized forces, those newly called up people who often don't have any military experience, are not reaching the front lines in the numbers and with the training needed to really change anything about this.
Nick, has Russia's illegal annexation of land changed anything?
We've not seen the Ukrainians take any notice of this. The Ukrainian government and top figures here have repeatedly said that this is basically a bit of political theatrics and changing nothing on the ground legally, and that's obviously an opinion that's shared internationally. No one outside Russia has recognized these referendums or this annexation. Just to give you a sense of the chaos and the kind of meltdown going on in Moscow right now, we heard yesterday from Dmitry Peskov, Putin's spokesperson, saying that they still haven't quite decided on the exact borders of what they were going to annex, if they were going to claim the entirety of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions as they are administrative regions, or if they were just going to claim the bits that had been under Russian control since 2014. As for Zaporozhye and Kherson, they said they would talk to the locals. So a sense that all this theatre in Moscow, this big event, the big kind of attempt to try and show that Russia was regaining initiative is built on very, very shaky foundations and a sense that Russia can't really get its story straight.
How are dropping temperatures going to change the dynamic?
There's definitely a sense that this is all going to slow down in a couple of months' time once temperatures drop. That was always the pattern in Donbass since 2014, that winter saw far less in the way of fighting and movement in the front lines. We've seen Ukraine already.
Yes, sir. Tuloy.
Western countries.
Masarap yan Sige. Oo. Kanina pa hinihintay. Sabi ko, kunin na lang yung bigas ko. Ewan ko, natulog na lang yata. Alright, see you later.
There is a sense that Russia is going for 300,000 new troops that they talked about when this was announced, and it was upwards of millions.
Sabi ko, kunin lang yung bigas ko Hindi na bumaba.
Qualifications they have, what training they'll have, and what supplies is a different question. But there is a sense that Ukraine is now trying to basically make the most of this sweet spot right now, where Ukraine often has more boots on the ground than Russia, and those Western weapons are making a real difference before Russia has a chance to restock and to resupply. So Ukraine trying to push back and double down until the winter stops things, and try and push those Russian front lines back as far as possible.
Connolly, thanks for your extensive reporting about this war. Let's get more now from Bradley Bowman, the Senior Director of the Center on Military and Political Power at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy. It's good to have you on the day. Let's start with these reports out of Ukraine. What do they tell you about the course of the war?
Hi, I'm Ma Anchua, Senior Songwriter of Davao Region, Region 11.
Shoes, makeup, jackets. Get baby toys with Maya. Baby store, lower or cart. Get baby toys instant. Baby toys anywhere. Maya, everything and a bag. Shorts, big bag, buckets. Pet baby toy with Maya. Baby VR, power or bar. Pet baby toy, very best will be a Bitcoin anywhere. Maya, it's every bit better bag.
Thanks for the opportunity to join you, and thanks for the question. They tell me that Vladimir Putin's unprovoked invasion is failing. It's too soon to declare victory, and I would have a little bit more of a cautious approach on this. But the evidence is undeniable. The momentum is with Ukraine in the east and in the south, and Vladimir Putin has made these illicit annexation announcements, but he did that for 4 territories that his forces didn't even completely control and from which they were retreating. at least in part. And so, this is an attempt for him to show something tangible, to try to motivate the Russians to fight there more. And the response we've had after the partial mobilization announcement is we've had more Russians fleeing Russia than the invasion, the size of the entire invasion force on February 24th. So I think no matter what metrics you look at, it's not going well for Vladimir Putin, and Ukraine has the momentum for the moment.
And Bradley, as you say, far from anywhere near a sort of victory, there are anecdotal reports that this fighting has come at a heavy cost for Ukraine in terms of men, material. What do you know about the casualties and how that might impact Ukraine's ability to sustain this kind of momentum?
I want to better understand the costs on both sides, just as someone who analyzes these issues from a military perspective. But to be honest with you, I'm not sure I trust most of the numbers I'm seeing. I mean, we know that Russia has lost more in 6 or 7 months than they did in a decade in Afghanistan. We know this has been really quite extraordinary and devastating in terms of Russian losses. And we know Ukrainians have paid a huge cost, both in terms of refugees, internally displaced persons, and also deaths and injury on the battlefield. But while there's been significant losses on both sides, what's remarkable to me is the difference in morale. It's just, in some ways, we're seeing what H.R. McMaster, former National Security Advisor in the Trump administration and chair of our center, has called a moral collapse of the Russian forces. And yes, they're sending some reinforcements, but in many cases, these reinforcements have little to no training. So imagine being sent to the front lines of a war where so many have already died with no training. And so combine that with the agility, bravery, effectiveness of the Ukrainians and their Western weapons, that's not going to go well for those new Russian recruits.
So that situation you're painting for us dovetails into Now, we've heard just yesterday David Petraeus, a former American general and CIA chief, have some pretty explicit thoughts about what a nuclear exchange might look like. Let's have a quick listen to what he had to say.
And just to give you a hypothetical, we would respond by leading a NATO, a collective effort that would take out every Russian or conventional force that we can see and identify on the battlefield in Ukraine, and also in Crimea and every ship in the Black Sea.
Now, that is an explicit and dramatic statement. I mean, that's NATO going up directly against Russia. What do you make of that kind of statement?
From the beginning, frankly, from before the February 24th invasion, my advice to anyone who would listen would be that we should do everything, we, Washington and our allies in Europe, should do everything in our power to help Ukraine defeat Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine while avoiding direct conflict with Russia for obvious reasons. And so that's why, for example, I oppose the establishment of a no-fly zone, which would require direct combat between U.S. and Russian forces to enforce that no-fly zone, while supporting sending every reasonable weapon we can to Ukraine. But this recommendation by General Petraeus, whom I worked underneath in Afghanistan in 2010 and who is very knowledgeable on these issues, that's very specific and that's very aggressive and would obviously put the U.S. in direct warfare with Russia. So I think what he's, the genuine sense behind what he's saying is we need to put in Vladimir Putin's mind that the cost of doing so would outweigh any gain, right? That's the essence of deterrence, that you either can't accomplish your objective or that they would come at too high of a cost. And so we need to convey to him that the use of nuclear weapons, whether they be tactical or strategic, would be unwise because of he would not accomplish objectives, the cost would be too great. And I sense General Petraeus is trying to do that. But directly attacking Russian forces would take things to a whole nother level that, frankly, Moscow and Washington were able to avoid for 4 decades during the Cold War.
Indeed, I think anyone of our viewers who's seen the day after that movie from the 1980s knows how these tit-for-tat kind of threats could very, very seriously escalate into a scary situation. Bradley, U.S. and Western partners viewing battle developments from afar, what does that mean for their support, their continued support for Ukraine?
I see no sign that Putin is going to back down. He's not exactly known for backing down. And so I think the burden of proof is on anyone that this isn't in quickly. We see wonderful momentum around Kharkiv and in Donbass and around Kherson, but there's still Crimea, right? And there's other issues. And some retreats lead to routes, and some retreats lead to the consolidation of defensive lines. And so, you're starting to see some reluctance to continue to provide Ukraine the weapons they're asking for, like the Army tactical missile system, which would allow them to strike deeper than the weapons we're currently providing. I do worry that we're going to be so celebratory in celebrating the welcome success of Ukrainians that we're going to allow our support for them to slacken. And I'd say now is not the time to slacken that support. Let's give them the means to defend their homes and defeat this invasion, while being very clear that we should not see attacks into Russia proper. And when I say Russia proper, I'm not talking about these 4 illicitly annexed territories, right? Because that's what Vladimir Putin wants. He wants us to stop supporting Ukraine. He wants the Ukrainians not to attack into Luhansk and Kherson and Zaporizhia for fear of a nuclear response. But if we do that, that would set a horrible precedent in Europe. And by the way, Beijing is watching, and they're wondering whether they could attack Taiwan, for example, and then threaten a nuclear response and make America back down. And so I think the precedents we do or don't set here in terms of whether we're going to be cowed by nuclear saber rattling will have consequences on the European continent for years and years to come, and also in the Indo-Pacific.
Now, we've seen a report in the New York Times that U.S. forces in Europe want to overhaul how they train and equip Ukrainian troops. What does this tell us about the cooperation between the United States and its NATO partners?
I was critical of the Biden administration for being slow before the February 24th invasion to provide Ukraine the means it needs to defend against an invasion. But afterwards, they moved with impressive agility in terms of bolstering NATO's eastern flank, helping Ukraine, and also helping with training, right? There was a big discussion in the March timeframe. Hey, we only can provide Ukraine Russian and Soviet origin weapons. We didn't want to provide them American and other Western weapons because they'd never used them before. Well, that turned out not to be so difficult. We trained them in a few weeks, and now they're using American weapons there to great effect. And I would note that the British have a very impressive training program for Ukrainians that's been underway for a while now, where they're training basic recruits. And so if you buy what I'm saying, that this may not end anytime soon, then we're going to need to have plans both for the short, medium, and long term. And that's not just about the provision of weapons, but they have to know how to use those weapons, how to sustain them, how to maintain them, and how to operate in a combined arms way on the battlefield. Something the Ukrainians are doing impressively already, but we can help them do it even better.
A very complicated and long process that you lay out for us. Bradley Bowman from the Center of Military and Political Power at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Thanks for those views.
Thank you.
Також будуть виділені кошти на відновлення пошкоджених об'єктів для допомоги деокупованим територіям. Від перших чисел вересня і до сьогодні наші воїни вже звільнили понад 6 тисяч квадратних кілометрів території України на сході і на півдні. Рух наших військ продовжується. 8,000 square kilometers retaken. Ukraine has managed to take control of Izium, a key town.
seen as a major setback for Russia in the Kharkiv region. A region that had fallen to the Russians on April 1st has been recaptured over 6 months later. On the 11th of September, this video was released by a Ukrainian Territorial Defense Brigade. It shows soldiers raising Ukraine's blue and yellow flag on the roof of a house in a village located in the Kharkiv Oblast, or province. In another incident, a district mayor in the same region posted a video showing himself doing this. He ripped a Russian national flag in two with his knife. Russia's defense ministry also confirmed that the country's troops have retreated from the area to regroup and redeploy. It marks their worst defeat since they were pushed back from the capital, Kyiv, in March. 7 months into the war, who is on the winning side? Is the war's tide turning in Ukraine's favor?
The aim is to completely liberate the Kharkiv region and other territory occupied by the Russian Federation.
Естественно, Россия будет добиваться выполнения всех целей, которые ставит перед специальной военной. Президент находится в постоянной, так сказать, круглосуточной связи с министром обороны, с всеми военачальниками. Естественно, по-другому быть не может в ходе выполнения специальной военной операции.
Ukrainian troops are trying to consolidate control over a large swath of northeastern territory seized back from Russia. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky is calling on the West to speed up deliveries of weapons systems. Meanwhile, thousands of Russian troops pulled back following Ukraine's gains. They left behind ammunition and equipment. But Russia still controls around a fifth of the country. It has responded to Kyiv's battlefield successes by shelling power stations and other key infrastructure. This has caused blackouts in Kharkiv and adjacent Poltava and Sumy regions.
They did strike 6 power stations. They basically blacked out much of eastern Ukraine, and the purpose of it was not revenge, they might have wanted revenge. It was to shut down the railway system to prevent Ukraine from moving those Kharkiv troops to the south for another offensive, at least very quickly. As most of Ukraine's railroads run on electricity. They're very, very few locomotives. And so, at least 48 hours, eastern Ukraine's railway network was totally disrupted. I think you can expect much more of that from the Russian.
But Ukrainians are not giving up. In fact, the counteroffensive in the Kharkiv region has given fresh hope.
Thank God the counteroffensive happened. We are grateful to our armed forces, our boys, and the courage of our leaders. Ukraine will prevail.
Oh, your Honor, I'm very happy and hopeful. I'm praying to all the gods of the
also it provides a civilian and nurturing the travel.
We are happy with the liberation of our country and very pleased that our armed forces are liberating our territories. This is a very positive thing.
When the Ukrainian forces came, we honestly didn't expect it. When I saw our Ukrainian soldiers with those patches with the Ukrainian flag, oh, it was great.
Ukrainian blitzkrieg on Kharkiv region was a surprise, clearly a surprise for the Russians. They basically escaped being encircled in those cities like Balakleya, Kupiansk, and Izium. But they did withdraw hastily, and it's a humiliating defeat for Russia.
While Russia has been tight-lipped about its latest defeats in Ukraine, strategists fear Moscow could look to punish Kyiv severely for its victories on the battlefield. Meanwhile, Ukrainian troops continue their counter-offensive, pressing deeper into Russian-occupied territory. We ask the obvious question: what led Ukrainians to launch this massive counterattack? On the 24th of August this year, Ukraine not only completed 6 months of war with Russia, but also celebrated its 31st Independence Day. Ukraine officially left the Soviet Union and became a sovereign, democratic country in 1991. 3 decades later, Ukrainian President Zelensky vowed in an Independence Day address that his country would fight Russia's invasion until the end.
Minsan inahaluan ko ng tanduay. Inahaluan yun. Mga puti. Yan yung mga puti. Pwede ba yun? Yung naalak nila. Ang buhay.
The recent advances prove that Ukraine's army has the capacity to retake territory.
Kawawa na ng mga taong ito. Hindi basta-basta gira yung nangyari sa kanila eh. Oo. Iniiwan na lang mga gamit. Alam mo yan, plano rin yan. Mga puti, yung mga superpower. Sinasadya nila yan para rin mabinta yung mga armas nila. Ganun yan eh. Kahit dito sa atin, nangyayari yun.
This narrow section of territory had been regained by Ukrainian forces by the 8th of September. The other map shows how much Ukrainian forces managed to recapture by the 11th of September. In just 4 days.
Ano ba na dyan? Marumi na yan eh. Mainit kasi yung hangin eh.
Where they expected a counter-attack to come, because all of the politicians and military said that we're going to attack you first. And they left it at the top of the country free. And the Ukrainians managed to actually put together quite a large force and punch through the front line to find that there was absolutely nothing behind it. And what happened was that the Russian soldiers started to flee. And when I say flee, I mean flee. They're stealing cars, taking bicycles, and running away and just leaving their equipment. And if you actually look at the photographs on the internet about the area around Izium, which has been a Russian hotspot for the last 2-3 months, they left virtually all the equipment that they had in Izium and just left in lorries and wheeled vehicles.
Ukraine says it has recaptured dozens of towns and villages in the Kharkiv region. This territory includes the strategically vital city of Izium, a rail hub that the Russian military had used to resupply its forces, and Kupiansk, another railway hub farther north. Both towns were major logistical hubs for Russian forces in the Donbas region. Their recapture has threatened key Russian supply lines in the region. It's the moment that these locals have been waiting for.
The Russians started to escape. The shelling began after midnight at around 1:30 a.m. They set fire to the places they were staying at. They were covering their tracks. When we saw that, we understood that they were done.
Yesterday morning, we saw Russian soldiers everywhere. This morning, we see Ukrainian forces. It's not enough to say I'm happy. I just don't have the words to express my joy.
According to the United States, Russia has largely ceded its gains near Kharkiv, and many of the withdrawing Russian soldiers have exited Ukraine. Towns in the Donbas that fell early in the war are now under threat from Kiev's advancing forces. But Russia still controls around a fifth of Ukraine's territory.
The aim of this defensive operation was to dissect enemy forces and move forward. This was accomplished. Due to the success, a decision has been made to continue the operation. The difference between the Ukrainian and Russian armies is obvious. The latter tries to make use of superiority in weapons and manpower, while the Ukrainian army relies on intellectual planning skills. Our strength lies in motivation and thorough operation planning.
How did the West help Ukraine make these rapid military gains? According to the United States Secretary of State, the strategy began to take shape months ago.
What they've done is very methodically planned out, and of course it's benefited from significant support from the United States and many other countries in terms of
Magandang umaga po sa inyo lahat. Ayan, sama-sama tayo manood. Nice. Oh, yeah, VIP. Magandang umaga po ng Miyerkules.
Hello! Ang oras po natin ngayon ay wala akong microphone na. Okay, ang ating pong oras ngayon mga kabigwas, alas 10:03 na po ng umaga. Tayo po ay magpapatuloy kaagad. Ito na ang programang walang aatrasan, walang kinakampihan, lahat ay haharapin. Programang bubuksan ang inyong saradong isipan. Programang mamumulat ng inyong mga mata sa katotohanan at isisigaw ang mga nilalim ng bayan para sa mga nagbibigay-bilihan. Ang tutuwid sa baloktot Pilipinas. Itong yanili. Lunes hanggang Biyernes sa DW FM 107.9 ang Pilipinas Station. Okay, magandang umaga. Magandang umaga po sa lahat ng taga-subaybay. Lalo na po dyan sa bahagi ng Amerika.
Ano po? Pumunta po ako sa bahay ni Nakulin dyan sa kay Padulo. Kasi po yung mama niya ang nag-resident. Bibigay lang daw po yung gamot ng lola niya. Sa mama niya po.
Sinakyan niyo?
Tricycle po. Kung nasabi po kasi ng mama ni Kulin, pasyal daw ako sa kanila.
Magandang umaga sa inyo, lalo na sa Hong Kong. Sa mga taga-Hong Kong.
Pero hindi po sa Grapay, sa kay Padulo. Pinapagawa pa po. Marami pong simento sa labas.
Ganon din dito sa Malaysia, Singapore. Ay, magandang umaga po. Pero dyan sa bahagi ng Amerika, magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. Lalo na po dyan bandang California, dyan sa Germany.
Wala po kami ginawa sa school. Naglaro lang kami.
Kaya naman pa niya.
Hindi nga po.
Kasi ayaw ko lang yung
malaman niya
Kaya
pero meron kayong advertisement, wala rin.
Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. Ako po si Tommy Apili ay makakasama po ninyo. Hanggang alas 11 po ng tanghali. At dito naman Luzon, Visayas at Mindanao, ako po ay bumabati sa inyo sa mga Ilocano na impag na bigat na kada kayo amin apo. At siyempre sa ating mga kababayan naman na mga Ilocano ay maray na aga sa Ilocabos, mga sir, mga ma'am. Okay? Ayun naman sa ating mga kababayan naman na mga Bisaya ay mayong punta sa mga nanginaganaw na mga Bisaya.
Iba. 11, yung bilog na maliit.
Sa ating mga kababayan naman na mga Kuyunon. At siyempre sa ating mga kababayan na mga itong pinakamayamang mga tao sa buong
Ayan po. Lulubay na yan.
Ang mga Ilonggo, Ilongga. Sila po ang pinakamayamang po dahil ang pera po nila ginapiko, ginapala. Pero abay, ginabuldos din ang utang. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat.
Di ba po sabi ng teacher namin na yung kami pumunta? Ako pa po parang pinaka-na-late.
Ngayon, mga kabigwas.
Po nagpunta yung mga kaklase ko.
Mga kabigwas,
Hindi mo narinig naman.
Sinulat pa nga po namin. Ipinasulat pa nga po sa blackboard namin.
Sa kanila po mamaya asa ka.
Excited pala yun. Hindi, nahatid sila kasi may pasok yung naghahatid sa kanila. Kaya hinahatid na sila ng resosyo.
Alas 6 po alas 6 po pumasok yung mga pang-umaga.
Oo, kasi hinahatid na sila ng may trabaho siguro. Ganyan yun eh. Tingnan mo sila ang mga gaya.
Jahin ni Liubert. Nalala nyo yung nagsalita nito nung nakaraan. Jahin ni Liubert na nagsiwalat ng katotohanan abay kinasuhan.
muna.
Pakain mo muna.
ng pamilyang Galyeno at ni Pastura
Saan po
at ng
nanggaling
isang
yung Olben?
policewoman. Ano kaya ang
Hindi pa ako nagtagal.
dito? Ha! Naghahanap talaga kayo ng problema. Sige, problema pala ang gusto ninyo. Hindi yan. Problema. Okay, ang pangalawa po nating topic ngayon, mga kabigwas, malaking problema. Doon pa hanggang ngayon, pinaniwala ang amo ni Damasco ng agaw ng lupa sa mga magsasaka sa Puerto Princesa. Panoorin ninyo ang mga video mamaya po, ha? O yan. Pero bago ang lahat, atin muna pong ibigay yung news. Nasaan yung news kagabi natin? Ha? Palabas na natin yung ating news pala.
Wala, lalaban mo yung damit mo.
Opo.
Laban mo na ngayon. Unahin mo.
Abay, mabuti yun, ha?
Habang mainit pa.
Nagbigay po sa akin si Huli na pambili. Bilang ko daw po siya bukas dito sa tindahan ng Martis. Kasi po yung dating binaon ko.
Only in the Philippines. Dito
Luto pa
lamang
ng ano?
sa
Bigyan mo siya.
Bigwas Station, nasa Palawan.
Nugget.
Alam niyo po ba mga kabigwas na matindi ang nangyayari ngayon sa hanap yun? Bakit ba?
Pinicture mo ba yun nila? Hindi.
Alin po?
Hindi kayo nag-picture doon?
Ito po.
Hindi po ako sumali.
Ilabas mo yung
Bahay
picture
nila?
ng ating ano. Yung
Ay, sa bahay po nila, hindi po kami nag-picture. Pero sa school po, hindi ako sumali
bago po
nag-picture.
natin umpisahan ang ating
Sila lahat.
yung ating
Nagalit po yung teacher namin.
ng ating topic, mga
Sa group
kabigwas.
ko.
Ano din yung picture?
Gusto po kasi kami kasi pinapasayaw po sila sa
ito
harap.
po
Ayaw nila
nangyayari po
sumayaw.
ito kagabi.
Sa TikTok.
Nangyari po ito
Iniwan
kagabi.
po nag-TikTok.
Isang
Binigyan mo
pamilya
yung
sa
picture
Quezon,
mo.
Palawan.
Opo.
Sa Quezon, Palawan.
Ay! Sakto po, wala siyang panulat sa blackboard namin.
Isang pamilya sa Quezon, Palawan, niluuban, hinuldak ng 7 armadong kalalakihan. Ito po kung sa tawagin po ito sa Visayas, pulis. Tinulis. Pero dito, hold up sa mga Tagalog. Niluuban. Isang pamilya sa Quezon, Palawan, niluuban at hinuldak ng 7 armadong kalalakihan. Isang pamilya sa Barangay Tabon, Quezon, Palawan, ang niluuban at hinuldak ng 7 armadong kalalakihan.
Boarding po ito, di ba po lalabin?
Ngayong kahapon to kagabi, nakalagay ko, ngayong araw, October 4, kung saan nakamkam ng mga suspect ang mahalagang gamit at perang nagkakahalaga ng 30,000.
Wow.
Batay po sa ulat ay kinilala ang biktima, ang pamilya ni Dan Dalasa, ang niluuban ng mga armadong kalalakihan na pawang armado ng matataas na kalibre ng baril. Ayon sa salaysay ng biktima, ay pinadadapa pa sila ng mga di nakilalang mga suspect at nagpaputok pa ito ng 2 beses. Abay, ang lakas talaga ng loob. Nagpaputok ito ng 2 beses at yun ang nangyayari mga kabigwas bago nila nilisan ang kanilang bahay. Dahil dito, matapos ang panluloob ay agad namang nagtungo ang pamilyang Dalasa sa police station sa naturang bayan at kasalukuyan ng gumugulong ang investigation. Hanggang investigation lang talaga. Wala talaga. Yan. Yan ang sinasabi natin, mga kabigwas. Na dito sa Palawan, nagpupra lang pala sila. Nag-ani sila ng pupra, niluto nila, ibininta. Nakabinta sila ng 30,000 higit. Alam niyo po ba, nung nalamang nakapagbinta ng 30,000 lang, alas 7 ng gabi, malapit sa school, ng Tabon, Barangay Tabon, niluuban ang pamilya. Pinadapa, kinuha yung pera, kinuha yung ibang gamit. Ganun na ba? Kasi parang ganun ang nangyari noon
yung awayan nung namayapang abogado na si Atty. Magkamit. Tabon din ang pinag-usapan doon. Dahil mayroon kasing mga gahaman dyan sa tabon na ang utak, ang amo ay mga malalaking politikong gahaman sa lupa dito sa Palawan. Sa mga kita, mahaba ang armas. Tapos ng loob, wala na ba tayong protection dito? Ay, Pangulong BBM, alam ko malaki ang problema mo ngayon. Dahil siyempre, nasipak si Vic Rodriguez. Nag-resign ang umano itong si Trixie. Nag-resign din si Jose Calida. Pangulong Bongbong Marcos, kilala mo naman po ako, sir, kung gaano ako kaluyal sa iyo. Sir, kailangan ang kamay na bakal. Kahit kunti lang, gamitin mo ang kamay na bakal. Huwag mong intindihin, Pangulo, na nasabihin nilang mamamatay tao kayo, lahi ninyo. Kung kailangan mamatay ang mga masasama, gawin nyo. Ang Diyos na inutusan na ubusin ang tao sa kanahan. Pinapapatay nga ng Diyos. Tayo pa kaya? Paano kung tayo papatay ng masasama?
Yung initan po ng tubig.
Ay, nandiyan sa ilalim. Kasi may tumawag kanina, nakalimutan ko na.
Ako, alam ko naman makakarating ito sa iyo. Sana gumamit ka naman ng kamay na bakal. Kailangan mo, tingnan mo si Duterte. Hindi lang na kumbaga sa kumbaga sa mga hayop, yung bakukok, tinawag nila nung ka-engine na bakukok. Pagong, yung mga tiwali noon ay biglang naging bakukok, nagtago sa kanilang mga shell. Kasi alam nilang mahigpit si Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte. Pero yung sa iyo, huwag kang masyadong maging mabait. Kailangan mo ang kamay na bakal, sir, sa totoo lang. Hindi po maganda na itong nangyayari ngayon. Pinatay na ang isa naming kasamahan na isa ring komentarista. Kailan pa ba kami mabibigyan ng proteksyon? Isa kami sa haligi ng lipunan. Kami ang katuwang ng ating pamahalaan. Pagkatapos ngayon, walang hustisya para sa amin. Lalo na sa mga ordinaryong mamamayan. Tingnan mo, niluluuban mga ordinaryong tao. Nagpapakopra lang tapos huhuldapin. Wash! So wala naman talaga. Ako bago tayo magkumpalaot dahil medyo umiinit yung ating bunbunan, akin mo nang batiin si PJ. Yung ating batikang vlogger na si PJ, ako po bumabati, binabati ko po kayo. At ganon din si Jake Magnus. Siyempre, binabati ko rin yan ng Jake Magnus TV. At ganon naman si PJ. At ganon din si si PJ ngayon ay nanunood din sana kinulab ni PJ yung ating live ngayon. At ganon din kay Makmak sa Team Kuli. Ganon din kay Coach Oli. Sa ibang mga vlogger, yung mga matitinong vlogger, tulungan po natin ang ating pamahalaan. Kailangan tayo, kasama po kayo sa haligi ng lipunan. Tandaan ninyo, marami pong hindi nakakaalam yan. Unang-una, executive. Sunod, legislative. Sunod, judiciary. Pang-apat na haligi ang media po. Nasa ating saligang batas po yan. Tayo ang inaasahan. Bagamat nasa atin ang kalayaan at kinaapi ng mga minsan nagsasagasaan nating mga tiwali sa lipunan. Ito lang ang ating masabi, ang maipukontribute natin bilang isa sa haligi ng lipunan. Magkakaisa tayo, huwag tayong gumawa ng kabantilan. Hayaan nyo na yung iba. Yung isa namang vlogger dyan na nagsasabi na binigyan ko raw ng karapatan na siya na ang magsalita. Sino ka magkumag kang vlogger ka, makita lang kita, tusukin ko yung malangala mo. Binigyan na raw siya ng karapatan dahil ako daw wala na raw akong karapatan magsalita sa aking himpilan dahil daw ako ay nakulong dahil sa libel. Kung hindi ka ba bubok, kulang ka ata sa 99, sobra sa 100. Yung vlogger na yan, pinahanap ko nga eh. At mo, kinabahan tuloy yung tsahe ni Hubert. Sinabihan pa naman na wala na raw akong karapatan magsabi. Hindi ka ba, naku, tingnan nga natin muna, magbabati muna tayo rito bago, ilan ba nanood? Kasi baka mga 2,235, ha? Salamat. Okay. Ito kay, natatawa na si Raquel at ito naman, Raquel, ito naman, galing naman kay Oriental Mindoro habang naglalaro ng ML. Nanonood daw sila. Ito naman, pwede bang mamaya? Hindi ko talaga makita. Uy, talagang biglang lumabas kasi may pumutok. Ano ba yan? Mabilis, hindi makita-kita po. Mention muna, sir. Ano yun? Ano yun? Anong mention muna, sir? Ayun, ha? Ano mo lang, yun. Muna, sir, ang vlogger. Hayaan nyo po, ha? Kasi pinakukuha ko po sa tsahe ni Hubert. Sabi ko, kunin ninyo para ipanawagan natin na i-unsubscribe siya. Ang dali, umalis kayo, magiging unfriend na para wala na siyang ano. Yung mga ganun eh. Sa totoo lang ako, masaya ako dahil nandyan yung mga matitinong vlogger na naging kaagapay ko. Hindi ko man sila nakita ng personal. Tuwan-tuwa ako sa kanila. Itinuring ko silang isa sa haligi na ng ating lipunan. Hanggang nila ang katotohanan, hanggang nila ang hustisya. Pagkatapos na yung babaguhin yung mga mislead ninyo, dapat hindi ganun.
Tang-tang, dyan meron.
Bigla humina ang ating...
Sa tanga nga ako, sa tanga mahal.
Tama
ba yan, Bulin?
Pasensya po kayo.
Tama ba yung price ng tang?
Tama to. Tama to.
Ang liit-liit eh.
Tama
yan.
Dati isa po yun eh, hindi ako.
Hindi, atin yan.
Ay, ako ba yung pineapple o kalamansi?
Basta tang
20 po.
Maya, ano? Wala nang
pero naglalay pa rin tayo.
Ilang nga ko rin.
Sige, kailangan mo lang.
Orange po, orange.
Choco, naubos na rin. Yung greatest Choco.
Bigat, sabay ng pineapple.
Ay, buti pa pumunta ka.
Mamaya po, kakain pa ako.
Taga-subaybay daw po ito sa ating puhimpilan. Salamat sa Fiesta family from Abu Dhabi. Okay. Ito naman, shout out pa rin galing kay, sabi naman dito, shout out kila Pugi, Ronald, Boy, Charlie, Makoy, lalong-lalo na kay Dondon, Kanilya ng DPWH First District Motor Pool. Apoy, babuhay kayo dyan! Okay, at atin naman pong binabati dito ang, siyempre, binabati ko rin si Tata Salmon ng PPNC ng Provincial Medical Center ng Bukidnon. Bukidnon yun, di ba? Nakalagay dito kasi, Bukidnon nga, Bukidnon ito kasi ano ito eh, Provincial Medical Center ng Bukidnon. Malay-balay pala. Malay-balay. Mula sa Malay-balay, Bukidnon po, di ba? Pag Malay-balay. Okay. Ganoon din kay Ma'am Gray ng Arizona, USA. Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat dyan, Ma'am Gray. Ayan, kailan po kayo darating sa Pilipinas? Para doon sa mga malaking tulong niya dahil na siya po yung nasa foundation niya. Okay? Ito naman, mula po kay ating yung babatiin din siyempre, si mapagmahal na si Ma'am Gabriela at si Geneva ng Germany. Talaga sabi niya, ma'am, diyan na ako mag-broadcast. Sabi niya, dito ka na mag-broadcast para walang mahahunting sa'yo. Kaya ano mo, ma'am? At malay mo, makarating din ako ng Germany. Mag-German na ako. Ito naman, galing naman kaya, ganun din kayo, babatiin din natin, ha? Siyempre, ang ating kaibigan. Hindi kaibigan, ang kaibigan. Si Jessica, Jessica Binas ng Germany. Diyan ako mag-broadcast. German lang, mag-German na ito. Tira mo, bago ako pupit, German cut yan.
Ken, kanina hindi ka nga. Sapayan mo si ano. Wala na, okay na to. Okay, game. Wala, kumain ka na.
Sa hindi pa natutulog na bagong operasyon na si Maricar Balbon. Ako, maanibig ko yan. Siyempre, pinabati ko rin si Manay Ruby ng Fukuoka. Fukuoka. Mahirap pang itimba. Fukuoka, Japan, na laging nakaantabay sa ating pong programa. Ayan ha. Ayun kayo. Umpisa na. Yun ang lumakas-lakas pa. Tingnan mo nga. Kung ganun ba pa rin ang ginagawa nila. At least kahit pa paano, lumalakas kundi. Mamamatay sila sa constitution. Ilan na ba yung nanonood? Kasi humiwalay. 2,412 tuloy. Kasi humina kanina. Okay? Diba? Ang atin po muna uunahin dito ngayon. Itong pinaniniwalaan na amo ni Damasco na nang-aagaw ng lupa dito sa mga magsasaka sa Puerto Princesa. I-play natin yung video. Ito po, mga kabigwas. Ang lugar po na ito sa Barangay Tagabinit, Puerto Princesa City. Nakikita po ninyo na napakaganda ng lugar. Bahay po yan ha. Bahay ng mga naninirahan dyan. Yung linis na yan, yung nakikita ninyong mga tanim, nandyan. Tinuro pa ng kagawad. Yung mismong, yung lugar, yung mga tanim. Yung mga tanim na talagang malalaki na yung mga kasoy, mangga, pati kung ano-ano mga pananim nila dyan sa Barangay Tagabinit. Abay, alam niyo po ba, tinumo po natin yan. Ako mismo pumunta dyan. Pakialam ko, kung nandyan si Satanas, dyan na kami magkikita. Pumunta ka ako sa kasuluk-sulukan, pinuntahan ko yan ha. Makikita mo maraming sasakyan doon Halata talagang mga land grabber ang mga animal. Ayan. Ako po ang nagdala ng kamerang yan. Kaya nagtungo po ako kagad. Pinuntahan natin. Ayan, ang daanan ng mga magsasaka sa lugar na yan. Hinarangan na. Nilagyan ng guardhouse. Tingnan nyo. Ang guardhouse ay makikita ninyo ng Love Security Agency na pinaniniwalaan pagmamay-ari ng dating gobernador dito na si Jose Pepito Alvarez. Yan ang guardhouse po, mga kabigwas. Tingnan ninyo. Nakulanta sila, dumating si Bigwas. Yan, lumabas ang security. Tingnan mo, umupo, hindi pa niya masmasan, nagpunas pa ng tuwalya. Tingnan mo. Ayan, nagpe-prepare siya. Ewan ko, kung baka hindi pa nag-short yan, nagsuot pa ka ng short yan. Yan, sa Love Security Agency yan. Tingnan nyo ang mga pananim ng mga magsasaka. Tingnan nyo, nilagyan pa, Nutris Passing. Ilang pamilya po na nandiyan dyan? 80 higit na mga pamilya na mayroong mga pananim at matagal na nilang sinasaka dyan ay hindi na po nakakapasok. Ang nagbakod po dyan, Lowingo. Tandaan ninyo, Lowingo Sorting Corporation. Ito po ang marami ng kinasasakutang problema, itong Lowingo na ito, na pinaniniwalaan na surveyor din ni dating Gobernador Jose Alvarez na ngayon ay congressman na. Anong kalaban-laban ng mga ordinaryong mamamayan kung ganitong klase ang mga namumuno sa ating lalawigan? Kita nyo, walang magawa, pati mga opisyal ng barangay. Biglang hinarangan ng mga security. Ang security, yung Love Security Agency, pinaniniwala ang pagmamay-ari ng dating gobernador na ngayon ay congressman na rin. Ano nangyayari? Mga taga-nasyonal, pansinin nyo naman kami rito. Grabe ang nangyayari dito. Tingnan nyo, yung mga magsasakang gusto na sanang nilang anihin ang kanilang mga pananim, ang iba magpapanim pa, hindi maani-ani dahil sa kawalang hiyaan ng ating mga politiko dito, mga animal. Yan ang nangyayari ngayon. Ang nagsara ngayon, ang nagharang dyan, Love Security Agency. Tinanong po natin yan. Anong sabi ng Love? Grupo sila ni GCA. Baka sa media, sinong gusto mong... Yan. Baka ipagtanggol pa ninyo, sinong mga sa media dyan? Ano? Anong sabi ng security? Sa grupo po ito ni GCA. Ni Congressman Jose Chavez Alvarez. Gaano kalaki? 100 hectares ang kinuha po. Inagaw po sa kanila. Gaano po ba kalaki ang target nilang aagawin? 1,000 hectares. Gusto niyo ilabas ko yung dokumento? Mayroon! 1,000 hectares ang kanilang gustong kamkamin. Kaya maraming mga ordinaryong mamamayan. Kaya yung mga mahihirap, lalong nagdudusa sa kagagawa ng mga animal na ito. Ordinaryong tao. Yung sindro, naglabas na rin ang sindro ng demolition order para tanggalin. Ayon sa DENR, Sir Tony, naglabas na ako ng demolition order para tanggalin ang guardhouse na yan para makapasok ang mga magsasaka. Pero anong ginawa? Lalong hinigpitan ng mga tauhan umano ni Congressman. Siguro, Sindro, mag-uusap tayo. Gamitin mo na yung pwersa mo. Kung kailangan natin gamitan, hilingin natin sa mga taga-nasyonal na mag-assist, ibalik sa magsasaka ang 100 na hektaryang kanilang sinasaka. Gusto niyo kunin yung iba doon, wag na niyong kunin yung sa magsasaka. Andito sa dokumento ko, kailangan pala ninyong 1,000 sinulatan ni dating gobernador, si Mayor Byron, na kailangan yung 100,000 hektarya sa naturang lugar. Kawawa naman ang ating mga magsasaka ngayon. Ito na nga, malakas na yung human trafficking sa ating lalawigan. Malakas na ang droga sa ating lalawigan. Marami ng mga ordinaryong mamamayan ang tinatamnan ng mga ebidensya kahit hindi totoo. Nandiyan yung media man na humithit. Hindi kinukulong. Pero ang mga ordinaryong mamamayan, tuloy-tuloy na inaapi ng pinaniwalaang leader ng ating lalawigan. Kaya sa susunod, huwag na ninyong iboto ang mga iyan. Ang akala kasi ninyo, ang itinuto ninyo tao, hindi po, ito po yan. Kaya ito, mga kabigwas, luhaan ang ating mga kababayan ngayon. Paano sila ngayon? Dumating na ang tagutom. Malapit na ang araw ng Kapaskuhan. Pero anong nangyayari? Dilat ang mata. Gutom. Kumakalam ang sikmura. Kaya yan, ang pinaniniwala ang amo ni Eugene Damasco. Kaya hindi matibag-tibag dito yan. Kaya pati yung adik niyang broadcaster, kinukonsenti niya. Kinukonsenti niya. Takot siya eh. Kapag tinanggal niya, maraming alam niyan eh, na maipupunta. Ang kinatakutan ni Eugene Damasco, baka pag tinanggal niya, mapunta sa akin si Louie Larusa. Tapos nagsalita ngayon kung ano kalukuhan ni Eugene Damasco. Patay kang bata ka. Di ba? Pero hindi ko naman tatanggapin yan. Magsalita ka lang dito. Kasi may kredibilidad man tong aking himpilan, oy. Kahit maliit lang. Kahit maliit lang, kahit walang komersyal, okay lang. Pero yung mga nagko-commercial yan sa inyo, hindi ko alam kung anong sinusuporta niyan. Baka mayroong sideline yan. Kasi dyan yung makikita yung nagsasabo. Tapos dyan kayo nagpa-commercial. Baka may sideline kayo, ibang negosyo, tapos sideline, shabu pa mo! Basa tayo. Ako na napasok sa pangalawang topic. Dahil ilan ba ating mga nanonood ngayon? Tingnan nga natin. At ilan? 2,500. Okay. 72. Okay, sige, tingnan natin. Huwag nyo muna bumuto sa kanila pagdating ng eleksyon. Tama yung sabi niya. May nag-take note pa. May rapid daw. Kaya pa kaya? Kaya pa kaya? Nakita ko, napicturan sila eh. Okay. Ito. Kaya maraming sumasapi sa makakaliwang grupo. Kasi para lang yun. Jojo Buera, ganyan na ba talaga? Diyan sa parang ba yun? Hindi naman mabasa. Ihip. Pwede ba yun po yan? Tigilan mo ba? Huwag niya pakyatin. Ayan. Sabi dito, G. Alviado Guerra, hoy, pastora, atupagin mo ang pangangaral ng Ebanghelyo, hindi yung nakikisaw-saw ka dyan sa isyo ng dalyino. May hangad, palibhasa, naaamoy kapuloy. Yun. Sino yan? Si G. Alviado. Yan ha? Yan. Kakuha tayo ng iba. Pigilan mo ba? Kasi ang lakas eh. Commander Badot, sa Palawan, mga politiko, mga walang ayos. Yan. Elite Bagsa, Hermadia, ingat, Sir Tommy. Salamat. Ito, 2.6 viewers. Sabi niya, 2.6 na raw. Sabi naman ni Alice Tate, sabi niya, kaya pala, ayos George, na ito, hiraharani mo. George, ng buhay mo. Kaya pala, puro pagmamay-ari ng Alvarez. Sir, mga lupa sa Palawan, sir, kaya galing pala sa pag-aagaw, walang puso at konsensya. Kadali mo, tapos pigilin mo. Yan. Di klaso Pingol, hindi din po aabutin ng 100 taon, matitigok din yan. Ayun, sabi niya, palagi kang mag-ingat, Sir Tommy Abilis, sabi ni Mary Grace Digal. Okay? At yan, sabi ni Ann Hall, 2.6 watching. Salamat po. Sabi naman ni Noreen Gardolan, Tommy, new haircut. Sir Tommy, ubuhay pa yung nagkupit sa akin po, ha? Ubuhay pa. Okay. Sabi naman ni Victoria, balik dito. Nawala. Okay. Sige. CC. Idol. Naku, huwag mo pa talunin. Kaya, pigilan mo. Sandra Aguilar, good morning, Sir Tommy. Takot sila sa katotohanan. Ingat lagi from Cotabato. Yan. Ranil B. Ugnay, mga kaliwang grupo, pwede ito ang unahin ninyo. Ito naman, ni Gina Malik Musa. Sir Tommy, ingat po tayo palagi sa sobrang tamang inyo. Ano yun? 2.7. Salamat. May tunay na pastora ay wag kang ibal. Sabi niya. Pasok tayo sa atin po munang topic ngayon, mga kabigwas. Ang atin pong ipapakita sa inyo ngayon, mga kabigwas. Yan ha. Kaya bagong haircut yan.